What if everything you buy could simply disappear back into nature when you're done with it?
It's not just a watch. It becomes soil again. It changes the way you think about it, right?
That's not science fiction. It's happening right now. But first, we need to confront an uncomfortable truth about how we live.
The big challenge that we are facing right now is that we've all been erased and we grown up to live in this take, make, waste economy. But the main challenge is to get people to actually think about it.
So how do we break this cycle? According to our guest, it's not just about better products. It's about reimagining the very purpose of money.
Conscious capital, right? Like it's capital that helps raise consciousness also on the way it is deployed, on the way it is created, on the way we are creating more value, more growth.
But there's one critical obstacle standing between this vision and reality.
Well, the question of capital is always the one that moves everything. And if there's one thing I've learned in 20 plus years of working in the wider sense in the VC world, it's very difficult to actually get it.
Yet, when the right funds flow to the right founders, the results are transforming experiences we thought were fixed.
When you go to a concert, to a big event, right? Like so that you go and you drink something and then that becomes waste. Vital is doing this in a way that plugs and plays with the system. You actually are part of the whole administration of that device, and you are actually getting in contact with other people that will also reuse these devices.
Join us for a groundbreaking conversation on how venture capital is quietly funding a revolution in how we make, use, and unmake everything around us, where financial returns and planetary renewal aren't competitors, but partners.
This was their finest hour.
Tear down this wall.
It's more than just an alliance. This is a union of values.
Let's start acting.
This show is not investment advice, and the hosts of this episode may be invested in the funds and companies featured.
Welcome back to the European VC podcast. As you know, our mission is to connect and champion the European ecosystem. And today's conversation is a perfect expression of that mission, as we're thrilled to join forces with the Chi team, Chi Impact Capital team, to co-host a special series focused on driving systemic change through venture and private capital. Few topics are more pivotal for Europe's future than sustainability, and few ideas are more powerful than the shift toward a circular economy. Today's guest, Guenther Dobrauz-Saldapenna. Tell me if I got that somewhat correct once I pass the mic to you, Guenther. Partner at Chi Impact Capital, private investor, thought leader, and former PVC partner, is a true pioneer at the intersection of circularity, systems innovation, and capital deployment. So I'm looking very much forward to dive into this with you, because you've also authored a book on this topic, which I personally have not read, but I know is a bit of a playbook for Enrique. Enrique, you told me, let's bring Guenther on for this first episode. Could you just tell me why you thought Guenther was such a great guest for this?
With pleasure, Andreas. It's always cool to see you and to speak about these things together. I mean, despite that, I really like Guenther as a human because he's a very nice person. I think he's a top leader in this topic of circularity. Circularity is some of the key elements that will change the way we are consuming and producing things in Europe. I think regulation is going to come very strong in the next years. And who else than Guenther to give us an idea of where we will land and how we can prepare for that.
Guenther, before I pass the mic to you, Enrique, could you give us an introduction to Chi Impact Capital and what you're up to, the size of the fund, those core metrics that people use to place VC managers in their mind?
Sure. I mean, you put it very beautiful, right? But let me break down what Chi means. Chi is coming from conscious, holistic, impactful investing. And basically is what we try, right? Like to make businesses or support businesses that are having that holistic approach. What we see is really ourselves as system thinkers. That is more than just like looking green or surface. It's really like shifting the entire sector and working with entrepreneurs who are really playing that as a role in their businesses, right? Like either in food, materials, energy, built environment. What we try is really to be a change maker on those industries and make it something that inspire others to continue.
And I guess this is a great transition into then asking you, Guenther, what is your personal why for dedicating your mission and all your time and energy to circularity and systems change?
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here. And the name is Guenther Dobrauz-Saldapenna. It's a very complicated
That
name, I
sounded
know.
like something similar to what I said.
Exactly. Anyway, so there's the name. But the more important thing is, as you rightly asked, the why, right? And for me, before I worked for PwC, where I was 13 years leading the legal part, I already was in venture capital. So that is also what brought me to Switzerland originally, to help build one of probably the first Swiss venture funds, which were not about circularity. But while I was at PwC, I started to build up my own investment practice there with two friends. And there it was really about, as you so cunningly put it, the why, right? What we want to invest in. And back then we said there is three things we want to focus on. On the one hand, it's exponential technologies. And on the other hand, it's circularity and indeed things that would fall into the longevity ideas. And then I was approached by my good old friend, Christine, who is the founder of G originally. And we go all the way back to university. And before we've been very closely connected and in touch. And she knows that I was in particular geared also towards the circularity theme. And when she was thinking about creating the next stage of the fund, i.e. the second fund, which we're currently as a team working on, we started to think about how we could put it all together. And at the time, I was indeed publishing the book on circular economy and was very closely connected to many people around the scene. So I was able to bring this one why that really moves me and that keeps me awake sometimes, to really put it into the center of what we're doing.
We, of course, as VCs are all very aware of the power of capital, but I would love to maybe expand a bit on the importance of capital when it comes to circularity in particular.
Well, the question of capital is always the one that moves everything. And if there's one thing I've learned in 20 plus years of working in the wider sense in the VC world, it's very difficult to actually get it behind you. So we're set currently raising the second fund. And I know there's a couple of others out there who are kind of trying to raise their own investment structures. And we know it's very difficult. And I think we also have to be very honest about that. And obviously the current climate, starting from the US and also what is happening in many countries in Europe, doesn't help. So you really need to go and find those people who believe in the idea and to really go after that. And once you have them, then you can go to the next stage. You can think about more structured investors and ultimately some potentially institutional investors to back you, right? And this is what we're currently working on, and many others are as well. They won't go away. But that doesn't stop us, right? We believe in the idea. We really, really believe in it as a team. And we're quite positive that we will make it.
There's probably not, at least for a good while, been a harder time to be trying to shape a strong narrative around circularity and sustainability and all these things that, as you described it, are receiving some headwinds. Some are even talking about them dying out and not being important anymore. And now it's all about just the pure business side of it. I'd love to ask you, where do you fall on this? How important do you see the narrative of doing good being versus only the narrative of, well, there are pure value adds from the products that are made in this category, and all the other stuff is not important at all?
That is not an easy answer to be honest. So when I started to invest in circularity with my previous company where we are still investing, we didn't care about it at all. We just said, look, this is our personal money, which came from the three founders. And we said, we only invest in the things that we really believe in. And a couple of minutes ago, we briefly got to see your little son, right? It was kind of the same with me when I got my son. And I know that Enrique also became a father very recently. And I guess both of you will hopefully agree that it changes your thinking, right? And it did so for me. Now, my son was born 15 years ago, so it didn't happen immediately, but over time, and especially now since he's growing up, because he's always asking me, so how circular are you really? Are you moving there and so forth? So I think for me, it's really, really important. But I do understand that the bigger narrative, which you need to bring to the market, stands there. And I think if you're doing away with it, saying we only do what we believe in, you may be missing the point. So I think it's very, very important how you present the story. And that means also what the team looks like and how and where you're going to present it, right? And that's exactly what we're doing right now. But first of all, it has to start with you. You have to be honest about it. You have to know why you do that. And then you have to bring it into the team context and bring it to the people out there.
Enrique, how do you verbalize it? What do you see both when it comes to your own fundraise, but also when it comes to your founders fundraise? How are narratives reshaping these days?
I think there is two elements on that. Like one is your personal values. So what you really look for, what is actually touching your heart and your interests in the long term. And I'm gonna put myself also on that, right? Like so, a few years back, and also Guenther is part of this amazing journey. I spotted a company that is doing watches, is a different industry, but is doing circular economy watches. What was interesting for me at that time is that it's the only thing that actually I can wear and it can represent the values that I have to circularity, right? Like I can show to people, like said, like, hey, you know what? I never wear a watch, but I just use it because I think that it's the only way I can explain to people what circularity is in a way that it is understandable, especially in this financial world and like these kind of meetings where you meet a lot of interesting people and also people that are really focused on capital and etc. But when you really focus on your values and you try to share them, family values, the way you live, and etc. Things like this is stuff that you can use actually to keep incentivizing others to do. And the other one, second point, is the trend, right? Like so, there is existing trends that come and go, especially in moments like now, what is happening in the US and in other countries, and what happens right now in Europe. The circularity trend is something that everyone is getting involved and seeing it as a more interesting way of presenting products. Also because brands now see the opportunity to get more value of the data that they have from clients due to that, right? Like, so what are they interesting to exchange? How do they use their products? They are now more exigent on what is happening with the product after the life cycle. So these trends are the two ways I would like to say that explain those the way we are going on this circularity.
Guenther, in your book called The Circular Economy, Redesigning Our Future, you talk about redesign, not incremental change. Could you describe a bit here why it is important to focus on redesign rather than just the incremental changes?
The big challenge that we are facing right now is that we've all been A, raised, and B, grown up to live in this take, make, waste economy, right? So all the things we're wearing, we're using all around us, they're basically waste, right? So in general, all the things you wear, at some point you have to throw them away and they become waste. So before we actually had a world that was different. So it's not that we are reinventing something totally new. We're trying to get what we have right now transferred into something new. So basically you have to rethink about, I don't know, the material used for your pullover or your shirt or your jeans and so forth. You have to rethink where you do that, right? Whether your shirt is produced in Asia and shipped all around the world just so you can wear it, or whether it's done more locally or say in Europe or even in your country and so forth. So what it really does, it's a change in your mind, right? Which isn't really complicated the moment you start to think about it. But the main challenge is to get people to actually think about it. And that is what we're working on, right? And Enrique made beautiful examples there. That's why it's very, very important. You know, you have things like either Genève, the watch company, or other companies we invested in, which are very much in the clothing or in the dressing or in the other associated worlds that are very, very close to what we actually do. So you need to get people to really just spend 2 minutes or 5 minutes thinking about and rethinking the world they're working in there. But that is more difficult than it sounds, right? So that is the big challenge.
Reflecting a bit on capital, you have the topic of, or the wording that is conscious capital. Could you tell me a bit about where that comes from, what it represents for you, how it ties into this whole avenue of thinking and working?
When we are speaking about venture capital, long-term vision in terms of Chi, in terms of how we are really creating value to companies. The factor of really looking after an investment that is growing or helping us to reshape the way we support nature or the way we support our society is that kind of concept of conscious capital, right? Like it's capital that helps raise consciousness also on the way it is deployed, on the way it is created, on the way we are creating more value, more growth. We can all agree we are still living in this capitalistic world, and it's the only way we know how to, for the moment, perform. So having this concept of conscious capital as an advisory firm that we are, that we give that sense to our investors and that they understand that, and they recall with this, help us a lot to actually keep the relationship with them, right? Like they love these things. They understand it from that perspective. It's like, okay, we are gonna make growth. We're gonna make some wealth, but at the same time, is in something that is consciously developed, right? Like a type of business, a type of industry that requires some support.
I think it's beautifully said. If I have to bring it down into one sentence, it would be using again the watch example from before, right? To really consciously think about what you want to invest in it and put it in front of people so they can look at it and just do this 2 minutes of thinking. And hopefully then they go like, oh, no, I understand it.
How do you square this with institutional investors that have a very clear mandate that is return money to their pensioners or whoever is their interest base?
Well, first of all, I think it's very clear we want to make money, and it's not a contradiction at all. I think if you look into the investments we've made so far, say, in my previous structure, which is still ongoing, it very clearly makes money. So I think that is not something we need to debate. We can show them. The main question is really, how do you actually get to present it to them? So right now we're going through various stages of fundraising. So the really institutionals are not the ones we're talking to right now. That will be later in the year. And there you need to overcome many, I would say, conceptual ideas. You're kind of trying to get around. And that is the bigger problem. So you really need to be able to sit in front of them, look them in the eye and say, this is what we want to do. This is the why. And this is the money we're going to make by doing it like that. And that is tricky because they're not used to that yet. Could
you give a concrete portfolio example that matches this storyline perfectly?
Well, Genève has been mentioned already, so I have to use the ones I've done before, right? Rather than in the G Capital fund, the Circularity fund, which we're currently trying to put together. Another example would be OceanSafe. So that is one of the Swiss companies really producing the material that is being used for everything that we wear, right? Vital is another example. And Enrique will be happy to talk about this one because that is from the first fund of G Capital and many, many others.
I can give you a full explanation because Vital is really touching my heart in many different ways. As you can maybe see, I have a piano because I love music and I like to create some pieces of electronic music here and there when I'm working sometimes. But the point of this and why I related to something very personal, Vital is a company that is really disrupting the way we see reusables. They started doing this in canteens and for small gathering places, small events. These devices, so is basically the cups, the plates you use when you are eating. So those are the kind of packages that they are reusing it in a system that actually helps not just the cleaning but the reusability of the whole devices by the people that are organizing the event, and also by the fans, the people that are part of the crew of the event or whatever you are organizing on that sense. And so Vital is doing this in a way that plugs and plays circularity as a system. So they are now growing more and more in these mega events, now going to the US in this year. The idea is with these devices that you avoid completely the take and waste kind of thinking, when you go to a concert, to a big event, right? Like, so that you go and you drink something and then that becomes waste. With the system, you actually are part of the whole administration of that device, and you are actually getting in contact with other people that will also reuse these devices. It's touching my heart because of that, right? Like when I go to an event, a concert or whatever, and I see all these waste, I'm always like, oh, what are we creating? I mean, like, is this really what we are aiming for when we go for an event, like just recreation and not like conscious? So Vital touches that points and help me on understanding also and helping people to get engaged into those kind of systems that are working in order to change the way we see product life cycles and the way we see consumption.
It's a beautiful way of how you actually tell the story, right? So I think the only way to really, really convince anybody, from a private investor to an institutional, is to really show them the stories behind it, right? And maybe if I can also give you one, and I'm again using the IT Genève, where we invested in, right? It's not just a watch, it's everything is different about that watch, right? So for example, I got myself the Circularity, it's called. And it's a beautiful watch because it starts with the strap. It looks like leather, but it isn't. It's done by a firm in England. And basically, if you don't like it anymore, unlike with this beautiful watch here, which is not the de Genève, which I'm wearing today, you take off, yes, there is the de Genève from Enrique. You just take it off, right? And this thing is waste, right? It's been worked on so much. So you basically turn somewhere else. Whereas the one from the Circularity, you take it, throw it into your garden, and it becomes soil again. And the same thing is true about the movement and so forth, which is done basically by bits and pieces from windmills and so forth, which means that it also becomes self-healing, which is the first one, at least to my knowledge, in watches, right? So if you put something in there by not being careful, you basically heat it up and then it is self-healing and so forth, right? So it's a totally different way of doing it. And everything else from the packaging and so forth is totally resolved. So basically you take out your watch, and other than my other watches, which are over there, all in a cupboard, you basically take it and throw it, all of the packaging into the garden, and it becomes soil again, right? And that is really circular, right? This changes everything, but it's very easy if you're at a meeting and you can say, look, I'll show you, knowing that a watch won't change the world, but it changes the way you think about it, right? And then people go, there is a difference, right? And there's two ways of doing it. You can do it from inside the watch industry world, which is very, very complicated because they have value chains and they're really, really well done, and importantly and rightly done in the classical old take, make, waste model. And there's the new way of doing it, like Ida Genève is doing it, right? So we are hoping that those examples basically speak to people in a way that will also make them support us and others by investing, but also have them change their thinking and basically have them go into a way that will hopefully help to heal this planet.
You're talking a bunch about story. You said yourself, Guenther, well, look at my portfolio as an angel or your past vehicle. There were great returns. You came up now with two examples, Vital and the watch company Ida Genève or something like that. Can you give me some hard numbers to those that are listening in, that are sitting here thinking, come on, guys, put the money on the table? Because I ask you this because it is the crucial critique of everything circular, of everything sustainable, of everything green, and it's only rising more to prominence. Could you give me the pure blood financial argument?
On those examples, not yet, because they're still going through their financing and they have not exited yet. But what you can see there is already how they have developed, right? If you take Ida Genève, for example, which has been mentioned, which is not part of G Capital, right? So I'm only picking it up since Enrique brought it up. But that obviously got a huge boost when, for example, Leonardo DiCaprio invested in it, right? So that basically led it from one round to another. And they are doing one A round now around this year. And I haven't seen the final numbers yet, but my guess is it's going to be way above 25 million-ish, right? So having grown from a startup company to that level, and by the way, they're making profit, right? So it's not that you have to throw in money that is going to be taken up and spent like in many other companies. So if they manage to exit it at whatever, 25, 50, whatever million, then that is the the money you can create within 5-6 years, right? We've done some other things, which are again not yet G related. So I don't know if you want to take some of those, Enrique, but which we did originally in kind of the family office setup under Excelixis. So for example, Yummy was a company in Estonia which we invested in and which then got exited to I think the second biggest VC company and now you have to correct me because I can't spell their name. I think it's a Danish VC, and that was very successful. It was after 8 months, right? So they brought in 10x. So that was quite interesting a deal for us. So it's very clear cases, I would say. Still venture capital. Don't get me wrong. There's risk in there, but the way you're developing it, the moment the market gets it, you're unlocking the money.
Vital, I love to speak about it because it's also a case that you can really Google it. They have a Harvard business case. They've been analyzed from many different angles. The last round, and it's public, you can go on LinkedIn and just check it out. It actually passed the valuation that we had in mind. It's really interesting the way they are growing, the ventures kind of interest, the venture capital interest. They join us, Emerald Technologies Ventures, join us on this call, and NRW also. I would say that the current idea of growth of Vital from Europe to the US market with these festival events, they are even going to double again the numbers for this year. The really interesting cases for us is also that this is a type of investment that replicates the interest of investors, right? Like it's, okay, this is an industry, you get there, you can disrupt that industry, then that industry can be used in other different things, right? Like, well, that kind of business can be used in other different industries. Like, for example, and this is something that I really like, Vital did a small first test in the city of Schaffhausen in Switzerland to do it in a whole town, right? Like, so you have all the whole system of reusability, but for the whole city, the whole town, the little town itself. So this means that whenever you buy something from a cafeteria, it doesn't matter which, you take the device, you take the cup, and then suddenly somewhere around the city when you're walking, you can leave it back. You can leave it there and you can get your points, your money with your mobile phone. So you get there, took back, you get your money back, and then the system is already working in the city, like on the whole town. So when you see that replicability, the numbers speak by itself, right? Like, so for now, we can say that more than 5 million devices, or meaning cups and other type of plates, have been removed or not used because of the usability of the system of Vital.
But maybe to bring it down into one sentence. So Excelixis, that was our original, or still is our original family office setup, that is very much focused on seed stage to maybe A round, whereas G2 is focusing on later stages, right? But in each case, I think the thing we're trying to work on is not super fantastic somewhere out there. It's very close, right? If I tell you, I don't know what the shirt is you're wearing, I hope it's already a circular one, but in reality, it's probably not, right? And the truth is that a huge percentage of everything being produced, I'm not even talking about where they're shipping it and blah, 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 and all of those things, it's ending up being waste. So if I just give you a t-shirt, which you can return, which gets turned into another t-shirt again and again, or at some point gets turned back into soil, you will probably say, oh, that's actually good. And if it costs the same, you will probably buy it, right? Rather than buy something from somewhere in Asia, which you just have to throw away. And the same is true with other things. So it's very clear cases that have a very short timeline to actually convert.
Can you both try and help me and the audience square the fact that at the same time as we see a strong movement towards circularity and sustainability in our consumption, we're also seeing, and I actually think I've read quite a few places that it's from the same people, an increase in the use of sites like Shine and Temu and so on. What is this thing that is going on in our society right now? I'm imagine that you guys are thinking a lot about that and you have a pretty good understanding of what's driving such schizophrenic behavior?
Well, it's not schizophrenic. It's purely human, People like something that is nice, that gets to them delivered via the internet, and, that looks nice on them. So it's not something I hold against people. It's just you have to show them the alternative. And you also have to tell them, look, if I'm having a very honest moment with them, I say there's two ways where this planet can go. It can become so overpopulated with waste that at some point it will just collapse, right? And this will not be paid by us, but by our children. Hence, as I said before, what really triggered me was the birth of my son, right? To think about it. Or we can try to change it, and we can just keep everything we have, just do it in a different way. So we're not trying to take anything away from people. We're just trying to give them an alternative. And the main thing is to overcome this, whatever you call that, schizophrenia, or not thinking about it, and to say, look, you have those two options. And with shirts, you can get it, done by Ocean or based on OceanSafe materials, which are taken up by the Swiss army already, and being produced by many, many people out there. But you just have to tell them that they can do this. And in most instances, I would say people are not schizophrenic enough to actually say, oh, okay, if it's the same kind of money, I will actually go and buy that. And the story I always tell, and I think it's also in my Circular Economy book, is I had 65 T-shirts in my cupboard. So whatever anybody says, that is way too much. You don't need 65 T-shirts, right? So it's just this waking up sometimes. But again, I'm not trying to tell people if they're stupid, because I know I was just, whatever you want to call it, stupid or whatever before, until I started to think about it. So don't take anything away, offer them an alternative and explain why you're bringing it to them. And then usually they go for it.
I will maybe use an example of how do I see it on this side. So I think Christine is a great inspiration. That it's our lead on Impact Capital, and she's amazing on the way of thinking and the way to create also a community-based approach around this. In discussions we brought to our board of the new things that we're doing at Chi, Oliver Brunswiller. Basically, he's one of the founders of the Freytag. Freytag is one of these companies that actually really committed to the use of products that are involving other type of materials, or materials that were already in use. They grow the company so well. The company really become an example on how to use that, and they create a community around it. And I believe on these, right? So now him also being a global advisor of Patagonia and all these brands that, they're really making a change, that community that make us feel part of. Himself being also an advisor for us, and, creating these networks, this community is at least what inspires me a lot, and makes out of this craziness of being the weirdest that we are trying, really making sense out of it, because is that storytelling, right? It's the story that we're telling to ourselves, the story of our life, the story of how do we put our circularity as the first thing for the way we live. Myself, I have a composter at my garden, and I go every day, and I planted a tree this weekend with my partner, and she was like, okay, well, let's bring all the stuff from there. And it was, to see live ground there and bring it to be another tree was super hot feeling. So I'm throwing that as real examples of how we do it.
I was doing notes here for our dear editing team for this episode, and I said, when you do the introduction video for this and do all the social media around this episode, I said, please use the narrative that in a time when sustainability and circularity is in strong headwinds, this episode is a truly welcome regrounding to the importance of the mission and how it ties in with venture capital, and how it's possible for VC to actually play an important and good role in this. Enrique, Guenther, I think you both experienced in the beginning of this episode how I was just trying to reset my mind around the importance of this and how it fits with the venture model. And I thank the both of you for helping me square that, and hopefully also for many in the audience. So thank you, both of you, for joining me today.
Thank you.
It has been a great pleasure, Andreas. You played it very well, and honored to be with Guenther. He's amazing and lovely to have this chat. Thank you.
This was their finest hour.
Tear down this wall.
It's more than just an alliance. This is a union of values.
Let's start acting.